The word IoTA has two distinct meanings. As a noun, 1, a tiny or scarcely detectable amount. 2, the ninth letter of the Greek alphabet.
Welcome to IoTA for Wednesday, August 17th, 2016. I'm Tony Lynn. IoTA is a daily news podcast focused on the Internet of Things industry and a little flavor about Atlanta whenever I get a chance. And there's a lot of IoT in Atlanta these days, so let me tell you. Let's get started. Information Week's Charles Babcock reports that venture capitalists are now searching for the next big thing in IoT, specifically around cloud-based industrial IoT firms. 4 such firms have had recent success and are targets for investment: C3 IoT, Update.io, Blue Pillar, and Carriots. We previously reported on C3, which is involved in the utility space, analyzing the macro utility grids and making recommendations as to how to make them more efficient and be able to reroute. I think that was either last week or the week before we talked about this. C3 has already earned $38 million in last quarter alone, which was the start of their 2017 fiscal year. Uptake.io is a Chicago-based firm with about 300 engineers, designers, data scientists, and have had some early success with Caterpillar, and they're really focused on the construction space. Blue Pillar is an Indianapolis company which examines large facility energy usage, the microgrid versus the C3's macro grid. And Carriots is a Marriott company primarily focused, a Madrid company. Someday I'll learn how to read. Focused on a development platform that allows developers easily to develop for IoT devices. So just briefly talk about this. We went through a rush, particularly here in Atlanta, that there was a lot of VC type of investment, angel investment over the past several years, mostly in Marcom or in InfoSec, in some cases healthcare IT, but that kind of stalled out. And in fact, what we saw was that the Valley out in California kind of stalled first, and then Atlanta followed suit, where in past year that the funds coming in for startups has dwindled significantly. And now what we're starting to see is the Valley starting to pick back up, and therefore so is Atlanta, but now focused on IoT type firms, particularly if you can call yourself a industrial IoT, which is getting back to Industry 4.0, then people are starting to put some real money into it. Don't really know what this means just offhand, but this is a first indicator that there are some changes coming into the VC markets. Be interesting to watch. Dan Jones of Light Reading reports that while AT&T seems to be focused on automobiles and IoT, that Verizon is turning its attention to agriculture. This ag tech is focused around moisture sensors distributed in drought-stricken areas such as California and Texas, allowing farmers to target exactly where water is needed most when water is scarce. It's more efficient and reduces waste. There wasn't a lot to this article other than the fact that I guess the guy was trying to point out that whereas AT&T is very interested in a connected car, whereas Verizon seems to be in other things. But I think he missed the point a little bit, is that Verizon just bought, within the last couple of weeks, the Fleet Informatics. I can't remember if that's the right name of it, but basically where they're actually able to monitor fleets of vehicles, not just cars. So whereas AT&T seems to be somewhat concerned with the consumer connected car, Verizon seems to be more focused on the industrial side of things. I'm interested to see how this plays out, because Verizon's already been on a little bit of a tear for acquisitions in some of these plays, and AT&T has not yet. But AT&T seems to be the leader in this, whereas Verizon seems to be the one that's playing catch up. We talked about this briefly, I guess earlier or later last week, where the providers, the service providers of cellular, have to basically spread out beyond doing just connectivity, because at some point there are going to be other systems that come in and replace it, regardless of what other people seem to think. So this, I think, is another one of those first turns. I do like this ag tech angle, though, whereas it makes it a lot easier to determine what parts of your fields, or even what fields, need water the most in order to best control your crops. I think considering how big the agriculture is in the Southeast as well, that some of these things could really take off. Let's see how it goes. Maybe I should go attend an ag conference for the next time. All right. So early users of the SAP IoT platforms report real business benefits, reports Chris Maxer in Tech Target. He goes on to say that there are three kinds of use cases that we're typically seeing, says Nayak Nayar, General Manager and Global Head of IoT and Innovation, go-to market at SAP. One is what we call industrial customers, customers with heavy manufacturing looking to optimize operations cost, maintenance cost, and turnaround time. The other category is the aftermarket, which is after a customer has bought the product, and it could be a consumer through a retailer or even B2B. These customers are tracking how their customers are using their products, then getting that live feedback to improve design, marketing, and create better engagement with customers. And then the final one is he says, the third is simple but very prevalent. Our customers with large moving assets, fleets, cars, trucks, they just want to track and trace where they are at any given time in the world and better maintain these assets. All right, so SAP is now in this. Most of you are familiar with SAP from the standpoint of its ERP packages and some of the other systems that it brings to enterprises as a whole. This is just a natural extension for them to continue to offer more services within that enterprise space. If they're early enough here and they can build the brand well enough, they might actually be someone you can consider going forward. I do think right now, like I said, with all the fracturing of these, again, the wild west, until convergence starts to happen, who knows what's going to be there. My guess is that SAP will start to make some strategic purchases of other companies to fill in that gap, since they already seem to know that this is a big driver for them going forward. All right, it must be award season, as we have yet another award winner to talk about. Orbcom wins two 2016 IoT Evolution Product of the Year awards. Their PT 7000, which monitors position, fuel consumption, and engine hours on fleet vehicles, and their Orbcom Connect portal, which is what they use to manage, is both won these awards. Business Wire, which means it's a PR release, and we've seen probably 6 or so of these in the past couple of weeks. I've not reported on all of them, only the ones that really seem to be less of a pat myself on the back and actually something that was, had some teeth. Like more fleet. We're seeing fleet. I do think that fleet might be one of the first big ones that comes into play, just considering the amount of goods and services that are used in transportation, and even something like Uber, which uses mobile apps to track everything, could be considered into this. And I'm surprised that Uber hasn't maybe thought to extend that kind of platform out to other fleet systems, just to maybe sell it as a platform. Hey, Uber, you need a product manager, I can help you out. All right, David Linthicum, wow, what a name, in InfoWorld says that health kits are better. Get started with IoT. Seed Studio has created the Intel Edison and the Grove IoT starter kits. I think we talked about Grove earlier. I can't remember if we talked about Edison. Both using AWS for data and a processing engine. This is actually designed, the ones that they're talking about here are designed specifically around younger children, or not younger children, but children, so that they can start to learn about IoT and coding and electronics earlier in life. So the Intel Edison module provides an open source hardware and software development environment that supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth Low Energy 4.0. The Intel IoT starter kit includes an Arduino processor along with 11 Grove sensors and actuators to help you detect the indoor environment, as well as create smart home applications by mixing and matching the hardware components. There've been other kits that they've done in the past. So there are other AWS powered IoT kits, including the Dragon Board 410C for Qualcomm processors, and the global scale MW302 for Marvel processors. Again, I'm fascinated by this. The more of these kits to come out, the better our environments are going to be. That I'm going to run out of money buying all these kits. Frankly, is that even though they're low cost, that as you buy more and more of these, that it just takes more and more of your money. All right, our final story of the day. It's an interesting one, and we've reported on parts of this already before, but they had a really good explanation here that I wanted to make sure that we read. All right, so the Isle of Man is testing blockchain to increase their IoT security, reports Patrick Nelson in Network World. And why blockchain? Well, we've talked about this already, whereas blockchain is a very secure way. I mean, it's sort of the basis for Bitcoin, and blockchain as a whole is, well, it leaves your head scratching. So I tell you what, I'm going to read what they said because this is a really good way to think about it. Sorry. All right, blockchain, for those who need to get their heads around this revolutionary authentication and transactional system, is a securely managed database or a ledger that's distributed by network. The network nodes all maintain a copy of the encrypted database, and new records can be added only through complicated hash validation functions. The records are added in blocks that link securely to the previously added block, hence the name, chain of blocks, blockchain. Each node held database contains the entire transaction history, so the central database becomes redundant. The record is supposedly they said, after all that great explanation, and they use the word supposedly, is supposedly secure in part because no one person can manipulate it. The database is replicated on all the nodes and can't be changed on all of them without the right cryptographic key. Perhaps the most important element is that all the transactions or events are indelibly recorded, making fraud hard to perpetrate, and data anomalies are transparent. So let me try to put this in a little more layman's terms. So because everybody has a copy of the chain, and every time it changes through a cryptographic process, that it updates all of those ideas. So it's if you're really struggling with the idea, it's kind of like BitTorrent. So, you have a copy, and everyone else who also has BitTorrent up, is perpetrating a copy as well. Now, you can obviously go in and make modifications to your copy, but making modifications to your copy doesn't change all the rest, particularly if you can't crack through the crypto keys in order to do so. So therefore, an anomaly, the one that you hacked, shows up pretty prevalent, and you can't really get around that. And so it really makes it very secure. Now, talking about IoT and being able to do that, because IoT transactions are going to be at the micro layer, and because there are going to be a lot more of them than perhaps transactions at a normal process, although there's quite a bit of those as well. Having something like this works really well, and it's data, and IoT is all about data. I guess the real test still has to happen, and at least companies or countries in this case, like the Isle of Man, are actually talking about it. If you've done this and you've seen it work, please let me know. I'd like to know what you thought. All right, please send any of the feedback you might have or ideas for the stories to my email address at tonamuck@gmail.com. You can always find me at Twitter, or on Twitter at tonamuck. Or you can find out any of my projects at www.tonamuck.com. If you're enjoying the podcast and would like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/tonamuck. And until tomorrow, have a good day.